New Deep Dive.
To the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into this modern space race. It's not about the moon this time, though.
No, it's about beaming internet down to us here on Earth. Pretty different goal.
Exactly. And our focus for this deep dive is Amazon's Project Kuiper. Some really fascinating stuff has been happening lately.
Definitely.
So our mission, really, is to give you a shortcut to understanding just how big this project is, the intense competition around it.
And what it all means, right, for global internet access.
Yeah. We've looked at some recent articles, official reports, too, that kind of lay out the latest moves in this whole high-stakes game. I'm personally just amazed by the speed of it all.
And there's a lot to unpack there. It's not just the tech, which is impressive, obviously,
Right.
but it's the strategy behind it, the bigger picture implications. There's often more going on than you first think.
Okay, so let's jump in. Amazon just recently added another batch of satellites.
Yeah, 27 more production satellites for Project Kuiper. That brings their count up to 54 in orbit now.
54. Okay. And these went up on a ULA Atlas V.
That's right, from Cape Canaveral. This was their second batch of the production models.
Right, because they had the first 27 back in April, and then those couple prototypes last year, October 23.
Exactly. And this latest launch, it slipped back about a week.
Oh, right. Why was that?
Just a minor technical thing, apparently, temperature control on the booster engine, but, it went off okay in the end.
Good. And they're aiming for what altitude?
About 280 miles up, which sounds high, but it's still low Earth orbit. And it's all part of this, well, massive plan. Over 3,200 satellites eventually.
3,200. That number is just, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is a huge constellation.
And they're not just testing anymore, right? They're actually talking about starting service. When?
Later this year. That's the plan. Start delivering internet to actual customers.
Wow. Okay, that timeline feels incredibly aggressive. I mean, considering the number of satellites they still need to launch.
It is.
What are the biggest sort of hurdles for them to actually hit that? Getting all those satellites up, getting service running by year end. Seems like a stretch.
Well, you hit on a key point. The manufacturing seems pretty solid, but the regulatory deadlines from the FCC, they're tight.
That's the U.S. communications regulator.
Yeah, they need half the constellation. So over 1,600 satellites launched by July 2026.
Wow.
And the rest by July 2029. That 2026 deadline means launching almost constantly, like nearly every other week.
That's intense.
And then you've got the ground systems, getting customers, and let's not forget Starlink.
Right. SpaceX, they're way ahead, aren't they?
Massively. Over 7,000 satellites launched already. Millions of customers globally. That is a significant head start. So you mentioned Amazon's investment earlier, that $10 billion. Is that really enough, do you think, to catch up that fast?
Well, that $10 billion is certainly a statement, isn't it?
Yeah.
It shows just how serious Amazon is. They're framing it as bringing broadband to places that don't have it, these underserved areas.
Which is a huge market, potentially.
Definitely. And it's not just the money. They've also secured what they call the largest commercial purchase of launch capacity in history.
I saw that. 92 launches booked?
92 launches, yeah.
Yeah.
Across ULA, Blue Origin, Bezos' other company, of course.
Right.
SpaceX, interestingly enough, and
Yeah.
Arianespace over in Europe.
Yeah.
It just speaks volumes about the scale they're planning for.
It really does. And, it ramps up that competition between Bezos and Musk even more, doesn't it, in this satellite internet space?
Absolutely.
But something else that's really key here, I think, is the planned link up with AWS Amazon Web Services.
Ah, yes. Tell us more about that connection.
Well, think about it for businesses or even governments that need edge computing, processing data closer to where it's generated.
So like on a remote site, instead of sending everything back to the cloud first.
Exactly. Imagine an oil rig, or maybe sensors out in a huge agricultural field, or even a government drone. Instead of sending masses of raw data back, you could process it right there, maybe even using the satellite link, reducing delays.
Getting insights faster.
Much faster. Real-time applications. It could connect that physical space infrastructure directly into their cloud services. That means, well, potentially huge efficiencies for logistics, resources, maybe even defense.
Okay, that integration makes a lot of sense strategically.
Yeah.
Let's circle back to the operations side for a second. Amazon's putting money into the ground facilities too, right?
Oh, yeah. They've invested about $19.5 million just to expand their satellite operations down at Kennedy Space Center.
And they employ a lot of people on this.
Over 2,000 people working on Project Kuiper now, and their manufacturing facility up in Kirkland, Washington. That place is apparently capable of building up to 5 satellites a day.
5 a day. Okay, that's the kind of production you need for those deadlines we talked about.
Absolutely essential. You can see how they might just pull it off. And speaking of launches, ULA, for instance, they've got 6 more of these Atlas V launches lined up for Amazon.
The runs that carry 27 satellites.
Right. But then they're switching to their newer, more powerful rocket, the Vulcan Centaur.
Which carries more.
Significantly more. 45 Kuiper satellites per launch. That's going to really speed things up once those start flying regularly.
Because the pace is set to increase. But, with thousands of these things going up, not just from Amazon, but Starlink too, safety must be a huge concern.
It has to be. Managing a constellation that big, that complex, and growing that fast, it's a major challenge.
What are they saying about that?
Well, Julie Zoller, who heads up global regulatory affairs for Kuiper, she's been really clear. She said space safety is a core principle for the Kuiper team, and they're committed to safe and responsible operating in space. Especially now the FCC has approved their plan for dealing with orbital debris, making sure these things deorbit safely at end of life.
Which is crucial with so many satellites packed up there.
Absolutely. It's a massive undertaking, but they seem to be treating it as a top priority, which is good to hear.
So let's kind of recap what we've covered here for everyone listening. We've seen Amazon's Project Kuiper really picking up 54 satellites are up now, but with plans for, over 3,200.
Right. And we've talked about that fierce competition, mainly with SpaceX's Starlink, which, already has a huge head start, over 7,000 satellites, millions using it.
Plus that massive $10 billion investment from Amazon and those really critical regulatory deadlines pushing them forward.
Yeah, all driving towards that goal, getting broadband to underserved communities, but also that strategic tie-in with Amazon Web Services.
Okay, so why does all this matter to you, the listener?
Well, I think it's pretty profound, actually. This isn't just 2 billionaires competing with rockets.
Right.
It's really shaping the future of how the entire planet gets connected. It could bring internet access to places that have never had reliable service. Think about what that means for education, for business, for just participating in the modern world.
And it could change how existing businesses operate, too, with that edge computing potential we talked about.
Exactly. It affects the basic digital infrastructure of, everything.
It really does feel like a new frontier opening up.
Sure.
Okay, so here's something to think about as we wrap up. We've got these huge numbers of satellites going up from private companies, Kuiper, Starlink, maybe others later.
Thousands upon thousands.
And Project Kuiper, as we heard, says they're committed to operating safely and responsibly. But just think about this. As these private companies keep populating orbit with more and more satellites, does the sheer volume and the constant need to manage them safely, track them, deorbit them, does that start to change how we think about space itself, as this shared resource for everyone?
That's a really interesting point. How do we manage low Earth orbit when it becomes that crowded, potentially mainly with private commercial assets?
Yeah, what does that mean for the future, for the next few decades? Definitely something to ponder next time you look up at the night sky.